This drip all on my body, soaking wet the Sani. Looking like a walking liquor, you can tell I'm grinding. Rolling back was full of loud, I can't hear nobody.
What's up, fuckers? Episode 12, The Beer Latte Show. I'm Steve.
I'm Nick.
Danielle.
And today is brought to you by Flying Fish Brewing down in Somerdale, New Jersey. And we're going to start, the first beer is called Stormy Skies. It is a New England IPA, 7.3%. It's pretty fucking good.
Yeah, I like it.
Classic New England style.
Yeah.
Is there a classic New England style?
Well, we've had a few now, and I would say this is comparable to them.
Yeah, it's a similar style in New England style IPAs. Similar flavors.
Yeah.
This is that. Then I like New England style.
Yeah, it's crisp, a little citrus.
What about our new rating system?
On this episode, moving forward, we are doing a 1 to 10 hops ratings.
1 to 10 hop rating.
1 to 10 hops, baby. Nick, what are you thinking?
I would give this one right here probably a nice strong 7.5 hops.
Starting. That's pretty high.
I'd go with like 8.5.
Wow.
Because I feel like I could totally drink.
Because you like it a lot.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I'm going to go by alcohol volume on this one, right around 7.3.
Okay.
7.3 hops. Very good. I think it's still a strong contender with those amount of hops.
Yeah, very flavorful.
So next up, we have Hazy Bones, which, as you can guess, is a hazy IPA. The fucking can is sweet looking.
Yeah, I'm seeing there's grapefruit on the can. I looked at the can after I sniffed
And
it.
pineapple.
Yeah, after I sniffed it, because I sniffed it, I was like, there's like a grapefruity pineapple smell coming off of it.
I don't smell a pineapple. I'm impressed
No,
that you
but
can.
I can get a hint of it in the beer. Hazy IPAs, always fucking delicious.
Yeah, I would even almost compare hazy IPAs to like a New England IPA. I think they're very comparable.
What are you feeling, Daniel? You like it a lot?
Well, I don't like the hazy too much. I don't like the hazy beers. But if I were to give it a rating, I would say it would be higher than the other hazies that we've had. So I'd say maybe 7.
7 hops.
Yeah.
You don't seem too sure.
Well, just because I'm not a hazy fan, but it's pretty good.
All right, Nick?
Yeah, I'd probably throw it around the same, around 7 out of 10 hops. That's where I feel like this one's sitting right now.
Wow, see, I like this one a lot more. It's very flavorful, very good for like the summertime for me. Big fucking fan. I'm going 7.9 hops.
Wow.
7.9.
Hops. Fucking hops.
Wipe your mic now.
Now, the next one is called an XPA. So it is their original beer. They consider it an extra pale ale, so they call it an XPA.
Citra Pale Ale, right?
Yeah, it says that on the can too. It's only 5.2%, but like I said, it's their original beer, how they started.
Yeah, this is just, I like it. I'd go closer to 9 on this one.
Wow.
Yeah.
9 hops.
Yeah, well, 8.59. Yeah, I like it.
Because of what? Like it's not too strong for you?
Yeah, I
it's
feel
not
like
as flavorful, not as like IPA flavor to you, right?
Yeah, exactly. I feel like I could probably drink it with anything.
Like a nice summer beer for you or around the campfire.
Not every beer is a summer beer, Steve.
It is almost summertime, therefore every beer will be a summer beer for me.
Yeah.
But you're thinking more like you can enjoy it with a nice barbecue, some burnt veggies.
Oh, yeah, that and or around a fire.
Nick, what are you thinking? She went fucking high, honestly.
Yeah. I was thinking about it, I'm like, it's good. It's just a good, strong beer. You could see, like, for your first beer, you could see why they're so successful now, that they were able to pull off something this delicious.
I mean, mind you, they've been in business since 1999. They are our longest lasting, I guess I'll call it, or the oldest craft brewery that we've tried so far.
Yeah, which is a feat all in its own. And to start with this, it's good. I'd probably give it like a 7.2 though.
So it's not too bad, 7.2, which is ironic because I'm going 8.2.
Really? You're going high also?
I'm going high. I like it a lot, like a fucking real lot. And being lower in alcohol, I feel like you day drink it a lot longer. And you don't, get too fucked up too soon.
Yeah, that's where I was going.
There you go. She doesn't want to get too fucked up too soon. She wants it to happen, but just not yet.
Yeah, or not at all.
And why are you drinking? So then finally from them, we have what they're calling Abbey Dubel, which is a Belgian style ale, super dark in color.
I'm going to like it. I know I'm going to like
It's
it.
7.2%.
They gotta be aging this in like a barrel of bourbon or something.
Doesn't really say that, but they are saying that you get a cherry and fig up front,
Okay.
followed by like a chocolate and molasses in the finish.
I could taste that.
That's good. That's what they're going for.
This is my favorite, of course. Of course it is.
That tastes dark.
Yeah.
It does taste
It does
dark.
taste as the color of dark.
Yeah, it tastes. It has a dark taste to it. That's why I was almost going with like that, like some type of aged barrel it was in, because that's what I was getting in flavor.
Oh shit! I do taste a lot of molasses at the end.
Right?
That's really good. It's sweet.
Yeah, I'm not getting any of that, but I really like it.
Well, maybe you should cleanse
I'm
your
going
palate.
9.5.
9.5.
Yeah, that's my
Flying
favorite.
Fish, fucking Abby Dubell from Danielle.
Yeah. Well,
Abby
I
Dubell
like-
from Danielle.
I thought the same. I was like, oh, cute little rhyme.
Nick, what are you thinking?
I would probably give it about like a 7.7.
Okay.
It's good. I really enjoyed that I'm getting hit with different flavors throughout. Not every beer does that too. Some beers just hit you with like one flavor or sometimes even no flavors depending who it's from. But this one I could taste the different flavors coming out of it. And that's something I really enjoy. So yeah, 7.7 hops.
See, I'm going to be a little bit biased based on my not huge fan of dark beers. However, I do like this one a lot.
Why?
I like the flavors.
Yeah,
I
there's a lot coming out of it.
There's a lot of different flavors, super smooth. I don't necessarily would want to drink too many of them, but I am a fan of this one.
Yeah, I would like to drink too many of them.
So you're going to go with too many of those. I'm going to go with too many of the other ones. My hop rating, I'd have to go with, like I said, it might not be necessarily fair based off of my,
Biases.
yes, my biases. But I think I'm going to go somewhere in the range of like a 7.8. Still high,
Okay.
considering I'm not the biggest fan of like a darker beer, but that one's really good.
Yeah, I agree.
And that is Flying Fish. You can find them on flyingfish.com or on their Instagram, which is Flying Fish Brew. And I actually can't wait for these guys to open back up. And then we're doing an interview. It's a giant warehouse there, huge tap room, and super pumped to do some interviews there with the owners. And today on the line, we have Christy from Soul Sister Paranormal. How are you, Christy?
I'm doing very well. How are you doing this evening?
I'm doing great. So I was taking a look on your website, and so originally I thought you were just a podcast, but I guess you guys are doing a ton of actual investigations.
Correct. Yes, we do investigations all over the country. We started in 2014 and just been going pretty much like gangbusters ever since.
Like super busy all the time?
Pretty much, yeah. Especially with the paranormal investigations. Like I said, we started in 2014, and our first investigation was at West Virginia State Penitentiary, and it was a very rudimentary investigation. What it really, in all honesty, started out as a girls' trip. My sisters and I live in different parts of the country, so we wanted to do something a little bit different to meet up and have a girls' weekend. So we had a friend of the family's who actually works on the board at the Moundsville State Penitentiary, and he said, why don't y'all come up and stay the night in the prison and see how you like it. So we did. We had started out with a few voice recorders and a couple digital cameras, and just decided to see what it was like one night. And after that, we were hooked because we had a lot of what we've considered compelling paranormal evidence. We heard footsteps and doors slamming and all of that. And after that, really decided to formalize the group. So we came up with the name Soul Sisters Paranormal and got the website going, and just really kind of started to move through the paranormal community, if you will.
Oh, that's awesome. I got to say, I probably would have turned down that offer. Even if no paranormal stuff alone, just the idea of staying overnight in the prison, I was like, you know what? Thanks anyway.
Yeah.
It was a lot of fun for us. We have my mom is from that area originally, so our grandpa was actually a prison guard at Moundsville when it was in operation before he
that's
became
Awesome.
Yeah, it was. And then he moved on to become the chief of police of Glendale, West Virginia, which is right up the road. So to really walk into those walls and know that, our grandpa was in there and was one of the prison guards that oversaw that prison population was actually a very cool experience for us. And then when we really delved into the history and did a lot of the research on the prison, again, it was just fascinating to us. And then to be able to couple that history with our paranormal experiences, that was something that really turned us on to paranormal investigations. And so we really use that formula going forward. We've built on it, obviously, but we've used that formula going forward. And that formula is that we really want to highlight the historical aspect of these locations that we go to, because without the history, you're not going to have that paranormal experience. And so for us, even if we went to a location and there was no paranormal activity that we found that evening, we would still put forth a video and explain the location and the historical significance that it has. So that's really what we seek to do with all of this, to tell you the truth.
Oh, that's great, because I love history, specifically on like historical places.
I was just going to say that's what you would appeal to you, and the other side I think would appeal way more to me.
Yeah,
We'll say then we've got the perfect group for you.
Yeah.
yeah, we always do like summer trips or weekend trips where we like to go to like historical, like super old places. My wife and I. And we have to look a lot more into certain areas. So where does your love for paranormal like come from? Is it something you like experiences in the past, or something you just grew to love?
A little bit of both. My sisters and I, we kind of grew up with the paranormal shows, Ghost Hunters, Ghost Adventures and such. And so we would find ourselves asking each other, why didn't they ask these questions, or why didn't they go to this location, or why didn't they stay longer here and really follow up on some of the experiences that they were having. And of course, the paranormal shows, they're there for the entertainment value and the sensational value of it. But we really wanted to delve in more specifically into what was going on with some of these historic places and the paranormal claims within. So, we would go, like I said, we started going to these locations, and for us, it was more about the history and then putting that historical piece together and seeing if we could really get into why the paranormal was there, trying to couple the historical research that we had with the paranormal. Because one of the things that we do when we go into these locations is we're always asking the entities, we want to tell your story. That's why we're here. And we want to recognize you for who you were and what you did, whether it be good or bad in life. And we want to tell your story. And I think that's why we've been very successful in getting compelling paranormal evidence, is because we go in with that kind of that empathetic mindset, if you will, of trying to tell the story and really ascertain is why the spirits have remained in the locations.
So, Christy, who are actually your sisters? Because I know there's some friends that are in this too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I have my twin sister, Jenny, and then our younger sister, Michelle, and then two family friends, Cara and Kim.
Okay.
So there's 5 of us, and we're an all-female group. And, a lot of people say, you don't really need that disclaimer. But to me, I feel that we do, because as I said before, I think with an all-female group, it comes across a little bit differently, at least in our videos and kind of what we do as a group. We don't go in with, a provoking attitude. We don't go in with a lot of bravado. It's one of those things where we're actually trying to couple the historical aspect with the paranormal activity. And so that's why, when I say we are an all-female group, I do feel that that's an important designation for us.
And do you think you get more feedback being all female as opposed to being all male, only because, you're doing, a lot of historical sites, and I don't know, I want to say that men would maybe not be inclined to speak to y'all as much as they would a man, or vice versa?
Well, I think we do it a little bit differently. And again, I'm not going to disparage any teams, all male or a co-mix of genders. I think what we do is we come at it from a very research-based aspect. We all have advanced degrees on the team. I hold a PhD in criminal justice, and some of my sisters do as well. So we come at it at a very research-focused as well as historical-driven focus. And I think that does lend us to being successful when it comes to finding compelling evidence. Again, like I said before, we don't go in with a lot of chest thumping, and we don't go in saying we know it all, because to us, there are no experts in the paranormal field. And anybody that tells you that there is, I think is just, kind of boastful, because this is an area where you cannot have an expert. None of us are going to have the answer. We have different methods of trying to find compelling evidence. And I think that's what we've been very successful in doing. And, we have had instances where we've had male guest investigators, and it lends to a different atmosphere, if you will. So for us, the all-female group dynamic has been very successful for us.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking. I have one other question.
Sure.
Okay, so before we start off, and we'll all start asking you, like, where's your favorite place, or have you been here? What do you think a ghost actually is? Do you think it's spirit? I mean, in your thoughts, or do you think it's like a loop of energy? Like, what are your feelings on it?
For me, I think it's actually both. We've been to several locations where we have a lot of residual energy, and for those in your audience who don't really understand that, we consider residual energy essentially a blip in time. So sort of like a record, like you keep spinning the record, and every time the needle hits this certain point, you'll get that activity. So we've had a lot of residual activity, but we've also also had very intelligent activity. And for me personally, I do feel that the ghosts that we communicate with have at some point in time been a human. And this is the spirit, that energy within that has remained for whatever reason. I think that there's probably three reasons that I can point to as to why a spirit would remain. Either they're stuck and they don't know how to ascend to whatever's next, they're afraid to move on, or they have some unfinished business that they're waiting for something else. And once that unfinished business is completed, then they'll move on. So for me personally, when we go into these locations, we treat these entities as if they were a human at some point.
And then when you do go in, you have, I read that you have certain equipment, and I read that you have like K2 meters, thermal imaging cameras, and voice recorders. Is that your basic standard for going in, like each and every place, or do you just, wing it like we do?
Well, it really depends. We have all of that equipment at our disposal. And, for any paranormal investigator will tell you it's not a cheap hobby. So, you kind of build on the things that work. For us, our best piece of equipment, besides ourselves, is our voice recorders, because I think EVPs are probably the truest form of communication that we can have. I think it's easier for a spirit to manifest as a sound rather than as a apparition. And this is just in my personal opinion. So we've been very fortunate to get some really great EVPs. So for us, we'll go with our voice recorders. We have stationary voice recorders. So when we go into a location, we've got 10 voice recorders. So we will leave stationary voice recorders in a specific location throughout the night, and they'll run by themselves the entire night. And then we have voice recorders that we carry with us. We have night vision video cameras that are stationary, so we'll set those up at the locations as well. We will all carry handheld pieces of equipment, whether it be the K2 meter, we have the spirit box, we have the REM pods, and we pride ourselves on getting creative with trigger items. So depending on our research, we will take trigger items that will, in our minds, help us to get some activity. So for example, when we went to Fort Mifflin, we knew that there was a prisoner that was kept in solitary confinement in an underground cell. So we took a piece of bread, we took a cigarette, and we took some water. And so we try to get creative with some of those trigger items. And so that's very big in our arsenal as well.
Yeah, I think you guys were in Virginia. I watched a few of your videos. Y'all were in Virginia, and I'm pretty sure I think it was an inmate, unless it was an asylum. I saw so many today. But one of them liked Days of Our Lives, so you put it on like an hour record. Yeah, that was pretty ingenious. I hadn't seen that done before.
Well, thank you. And we were the first to do that. I don't know if any subsequent teams have done it, but in our research, we had found out that one of the prisoners, and that was at West Virginia State Penitentiary, and one of the prisoners there, his name was Red Snyder, and he was in prison for murder, and he was one of the gang leaders there of the Aryan Brotherhood. So he's a really bad guy, but one of his vices was he liked to watch Days of Our Lives. So they would wheel the TV to his cell every day, and he would watch Days of Our Lives, and he would smoke cigarettes. Those were his two big vices. So we left some cigarettes in the cell, and then we had downloaded an episode of Days of Our Lives, and we let it run by itself stationary for an hour, and we completely left that cell block. And then when we came back, we asked if he had seen the things that we had left for him, and to us, we got a very compelling male voice that says yes. And then we had a very cool K2 session that I believe was Red interacting with us because we had left that stuff for him, that very personal stuff for him.
And can I ask, was it a more recent episode, or was it, would it have been in his time?
Let's see. On that one, it was about a year after because he was killed in the prison by a rival gang member.
Oh.
I can't, the date escapes me, but it was the season after that was the one that I downloaded.
Catching him up.
Exactly. Exactly. So, and I kind of told him some of the storyline, a little bit of how some of it ended. Just not that I'm a Days of Our Lives watcher. I just Wikipedia'd some things. So just kind of catching him up on some of the character storylines. But, and again, and I appreciate you watching, and I appreciate you bringing that question up, because that does highlight what we try to do. We feel that, in life, one of our greatest needs is to be recognized. Nobody wants to be alone. Nobody wants to be in a crowd and not be seen. And we feel the same thing with these spirits. You can go to these locations and do all this paranormal investigations and really try to get a broad overview. But when you kind of delve down and really try to personalize it to some of these spirits that you want to talk to, I think you can get a very compelling response to that, because they just want to be seen just like we do. And so we do try to bring that personal element as best we can to these locations to see if we can get a response because of that.
It is amazing that nobody's ever, we've only have our limited, regular TV that we do watch, like the ghost hunters and what have you. But it's amazing that nobody's done that I've seen anyway.
Well, and again, thank you for bringing that up. It was just kind of something that I thought, hey, this is what he liked. So let's see if we can appease him a little bit and get some responses. And I do think we got some compelling evidence because of that.
Yeah. I have one last question. I hate to be the hog of all this.
No,
but
please.
it's so interesting to me. So I read that y'all have seen, heard, and smelled things that you can't explain. Is there like a common thread there? Is there any kind of like commonality between, each and every place, or is it all as different as, let's say, a fingerprint?
For what we've experienced, it's all a little bit different. And for us, the smell aspect, that really came from St. Augustine. We were in the St. Augustine Lighthouse. And so that was the smells that we got there were of a pipe and of a cigar. And that was very germane to that situation, because the lighthouse keeper, he went outside and he smoked his cigar every night, and that was his thing. And, the area that we smelled the cigar smoke was in that general area. So, again, to us, it's kind of unique to each situation. We've smelled cigarette smoke in prisons. And again, we leave trigger items we leave cigarettes as trigger items in those locations, but we have smelled the smell of lit cigarettes. And because that is something that they would have done in prison. They would have smoked. Perfume has been very big with us. We really don't highlight those as much in our videos, because obviously smell and touch and temperature don't translate well, obviously, over television. So we'll bring it up to some extent, but you can always have those cynics or skeptics that say, oh, you're just making that up. You really didn't feel that. But when we put forth audio and video evidence, I think that really translates a little bit better as to what we find. And it gives a more compelling story of our paranormal investigations. But for a long-winded answer to your question, the sights and smells and sounds that we have captured, for the most part, have been unique to each location.
Okay, that's what I was wondering. I only ask because this is a stupid thing, but my husband can attest to it. Sometimes I get like, and it's quite often, I get this sensation that, like, do you ever get that feeling like if somebody's smoking, your lungs just want to close up kind of feeling? Like, I get that a lot. And my mother used to be a heavy smoker, so I'm always asking them, what's changed in the room? Like, we'll walk into a place, I'll be like, what's changed? Because I'm smelling it now. And he's like, nothing.
And that's very interesting, because that could be, for lack of a better terminology, that could be your tell that there's paranormal activity around. So, for example, when I go into a location, one of my tells is my right leg will start to get numb, even if I'm standing, sitting, whatever. And it kind of like when your foot goes to sleep, that feeling.
Yeah.
And it's generally between my knee and my ankle. And I'm like, okay, I think we may start getting some activity here. My younger sister has long hair, and so her hair gets played with a lot if she's wearing it down that night. And so we each have different experiences like that carry over on different locations, because the thing with my leg, I mean, that's happened at almost every location that we've been to. So that the lungs for you could essentially be your sign or your tell, for lack of a better term.
Interesting.
Yeah, we never thought about it that way.
Never thought about. I always thought my tell
Now
would
we're
be
moving.
like my back gets really cold sometimes, like infrequently. I'm such a scaredy cat. So if something were to actually show itself or present itself in any way, I'd be quite frightened. But that's just me. Now, has this always happened for you? Like even prior to your getting into Soul Sisters?
It has, in different locations. There are some instances where I'd say, okay, I think this place may be haunted, and just because of that. But it's very prevalent when we go to these locations now. It's a place where we are assuming that is pretty high activity. So it definitely happens more frequently now. But yes, it happened before we formed Soul Sisters.
And you've always made the link, right? Or not?
And it took me a while to make the link, but I did make the link before we started really formalizing these investigations. Yes.
That's so interesting.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah.
Now, I know you do both like private residences and other buildings, but the private ones, are they mostly like looking for loved ones, or are they sometimes have you ever gone to any that they're thinking like haunted in a bad way?
We've had some that have questioned whether or not they have demonic entity in their house or in their location. We've actually had businesses as well. For example, we had a business owner come to us and say, "Hey, I've just gotten this really weird relic, and I think my place is I think my business is haunted. My motion cameras keep going off at night, and there's no motion, and the night vision cameras will turn off, the security cameras. So I think it's demonic." And in that instance, we went in and we did some investigations over a night, and we were able to ascertain that what was happening was when a car would turn at a specific stoplight right down from the business, the headlights would bounce off of this mirror that was on the wall, and that would turn off the night vision on his camera. So, in that instance, we were able to say, we don't feel that your place is haunted. Just move the cameras in a different angle, and I think it'll stop. And he did, and it did. So for us, it really is trying to go in and see if they have any activity, and really to kind of put their minds at ease. Some are looking for loved ones. Some just say, I moved into this house, I think it's haunted. My come in and my pictures are askew, or my dog keeps looking at something on the wall. And in those cases, we'll go in and do an investigation and try to find them some answers. What we don't do cleansings. We don't do, any exorcisms or anything.
Okay, right.
Yeah, we don't do anything like that. We're just really in it purely for the investigation standpoint. Now, if we find something that we feel is demonic, or, that they just want removed from their house, we do have experts that will call for that service and ask them to come in and take over the case. But for us, we're actually exploring the fact of whether or not they have an entity in their house. So, for us, they are looking for loved ones, but most of the time they're really just looking for answers.
Right. Now, you said you have friends that you can call on. Have you ever had to call on them for a location?
Yes, for ones in Florida, yeah. And there's the paranormal community. It's a subculture, obviously, but it is a very close subculture, close knit, if you will. And so, once you really get into it and you start talking to different groups or going to Paracons and meeting different people, you do really form a network, a connection and a network of people with different abilities. And whether it be a medium or whether it be somebody who deals with demonic entities and stuff that can do cleansings, you do have that network that you can reach out to.
If you can't get too detailed, it's okay, but in that specific instance, like what were you finding?
Well, the person that owned the house was very scared. They felt that they were getting scratched and stuff, and we did find some negative evidence, if you will. So, for example, some of the EVPs were saying "get out." We caught a B word on an EVP on a recorder. And so we call, and like I said, we had to tell the owner, this isn't what we do. Here are the answers, or some answers, but let me put you in touch with this group. And so I gave them, they swapped numbers, and then that group, the other group that has the demonologist on it, took over the case from there.
Now, did you feel threatened at all when they're telling you to get out or stuff like that? Did you feel like super uneasy?
No, not really. When we go into these locations, what we feel is more, like I said, we really come at it from a scientific standpoint. Okay. So for us, it's really a delving into the answers. So we've been startled. We've never really been scared or what I would consider threatened. I know other paranormal investigators who have, but for us, I think because we really don't go in and either look for or try to provoke the dark, if that makes sense, it really doesn't come at us like it does some other paranormal investigators. Again, we don't come in and say, touch me, dang it. And, if you're here,
Yeah.
if you can't hit me, then you're not really here. That's not what we do.
There
Again,
is that show out there that does that. I
Yeah,
can't
I
think of the
think,
name
yeah.
of it.
Yeah,
I always
exactly.
find it odd,
Yeah.
personally, but
And again, I'm not going to disparage anybody. If that's their thing, that's their thing. But it's not our thing. So, for us, I've been startled. There are times when I felt uneasy, but never threatened. No.
well, that's good. It's got to put you at ease at least.
And we do take precautions. We have a prayer protection that we use before we go in and out, and then when we come out of a location. So, again, for us, we've just been very fortunate that we've never felt threatened. We've never been harmed, and
Right.
it's just
Yeah, I was going to ask.
it's really.
It makes. I'm sorry to cut you off. It makes sense that you do stuff like that because I was going to ask if you ever felt like
It
something
came home with you.
Yeah, like,
I was going to say the same thing.
Like you got like followed home type deal.
Yeah,
Like it
yeah.
latched onto you, but I guess luckily it hasn't.
Yeah, no, not like that. I've felt that we've made connections with entities. One of the locations that I'm very close with is the Ma Barker house. And when I say close with, after we did the investigation, I actually went back and became a volunteer and a docent at that location. So I've become attached to the house more so than the house becoming attached to me. It's kind of the reverse there. But, as far as bringing things home, no, we've never really had that. And we've kind of come up with the mindset that, if you're forceful enough to say, you're not welcome, you're not welcome to come with me. We've just been very fortunate in the fact that nothing has. And I think that respect that, because I think that we go in with the attitude of respect, and I think we get that in return. And
makes a lot
that's
of
kind of
sense.
that's how we've been looking at it. That's what's kept us, in my mind for all these years, that's kind of what has kind of kept us protected.
Would you say that have you gone to any houses where you find that it might just be all in the person's mind?
We've had a couple cases like that. And a lot of the times when a private resident or the owner of a private residence contacts us, the first thing I'll do is say, okay, let me give you a couple voice recorders, and you put the voice recorders up in your house and just go about your day, and then we'll listen to it and see if we find anything. And sometimes, it can have a very, a simple explanation, the neighbor's dog or something like that. A raccoon in the attic, we've had that happen. It's just, there could be simple explanations. If we can't find it, or the homeowner can't find that simple explanation, then we'll go in and do a different investigation. We'll set up our cameras. We'll ask the homeowners to leave for a couple hours while we ask some questions and stuff. And then a lot of times we ask the homeowners to stay with us. It's because they obviously know the home. They're the ones that are connected to that entity. And it'll be like, let's sit and ask some questions and see if we can get some responses, because you are the homeowners. And if they feel that, they don't want it there, we'll say, okay, let's sit down and you ask the entity to leave, because this is your home. And if that doesn't work, like I said, then we'll escalate if the resident really wants it to go. But there's been instances also where they're like, okay, this is pretty cool. We live in a haunted house. I can live with that. We've had several of those. It's like, all right, I just wanted to know I wasn't crazy.
I'm going to charge an admission fee now.
Exactly. Paranormal tourism, baby.
Have you guys ever been to Gettysburg?
We have. In fact, I was up in Gettysburg in November, and we stayed at the Farnsworth bed and breakfast there in Gettysburg. We've actually stayed there 3 times. And the first time was kind of interesting because we were in a room that was said to be inhabited by the spirit of a young child. So we had set up some marbles, and we had found some of the old, those metal jacks.
Oh, yeah.
So we set some of those up, and we set up some night vision cameras while we slept. And in the room, the bathroom that was in the room had one of the toilets with the pool plunger, that comes down from the ceiling. So you pull it to flush it.
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
And during the night, that sucker started swinging just to and fro like somebody was playing with it. And then we saw shadow figures go through underneath the door, because the doorway into the hall had a pretty substantial crack underneath it. So you could see kind of, the light coming from the hallway. And so we saw shadow figures walk across. And then we also caught some child giggling on that investigation. So that was pretty neat. My younger sister actually woke up with what she says is the spirit of an older gentleman standing over her bed, which is kind of interesting. So to answer your question, yes, we've been to Gettysburg.
When you guys do hear things, is it ever audible to you all, or is it mostly audible to your equipment?
It's both. And to follow up on that question a little bit further, it also happens during the day, because we get a lot of, why do you only investigate at night? But we have had several audible responses during the day. I've been very fortunate enough to become friends with Miranda Young from Ghost Biker Explorations. She has her own web series. So she and I teamed up, and we're the only two people in the old Gilchrist County Jail, which is in Trenton, Florida. And we were doing a day sweep of the jail. She and I were the only two in there, and she had panned her camera from one cell to the next, and as clear as day, you heard a guy behind her say, "Hey, come back." And we both heard it. We caught it on the camera that she was using, and we caught it on our voice recorder. So that was a very cool experience. Numerous times we'll capture audible, which we can clearly hear in the moment, voices.
That is creepy.
Yeah, the voices and the door slamming. We caught several door slams in Brushy Mountain State Penitentiary as well as West Virginia State Penitentiary. Caught some great door slam evidence. When we were in Trans-Allegheny Lunatic Asylum, we were taking a tour. We had set up all of our equipment, and then there were two women who were there who were the volunteers that open the doors and stuff and that stay on site. So we had asked them to come with us to do a walkthrough. So it was all of my investigators and these two women. And so we're the only people in the building, which is huge if you haven't been there. And so we're just kind of standing in the middle of one of these hallways, and a blood curdling scream comes from down the other end of the hallway. And we captured that if you watch that video, you'll actually hear that. It was a female voice, just probably the loudest scream I've heard in any of these locations that we've gone to. So that was pretty cool. So long-winded answer to your question. Yes, we've actually caught them and have heard them.
Pretty cool. I would have pooped my pants right there.
It would have been over.
It would have been it. It would have been me screaming also.
Yeah. Well, for us, like I said, when we get into these locations, we just kind of get into the zone, and it is just fascinating to us. And, so those are the noises that we kind of walk towards to see if we can find, what caused it. And, barring anything that we can physically see, we really want answers as to what made that. And, to get that scream in Trans-Allegheny Lunatic Asylum was just, to us, tremendous.
So is it a matter of, like when you're in the moment? Because if I'm thinking about it right now, I'm like, you're watching those old time like horror films, and you're like, why are they walking towards it? But like in the moment, you're like, I'm just gonna walk towards this. Is it like that kind of thing? Because if you thought about it too long, would you walk towards it?
But depending what it is, and for this example, we were at West Virginia State Penitentiary, and in the infirmary, which is in the second floor of one of the cell blocks. So you've got the infirmary, and it's a long hallway, and there's just offices off to each side that had, dentist chairs and gurneys and all of this. And so that you can access the infirmary by two steel staircases on each end of this hallway. And so we were sitting there, pitch dark. We were in the middle of the hallway, or we were sitting there, and we were saying things like, "It's time to take your medicine. Come up, it's med time." And you would just hear boom, 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 footsteps coming up the stairs. And so for us, it's a startling moment, because you're like, am I really hearing this? But at the same time, it's fascinating. So on those, we got up to walk over to see if anything physical was coming up, and, it wasn't. And then we just turned and looked at each other. And I think at that instance, we high-fived. And it's like, yes, we caught that.
We did it.
Yeah, we've got that on audio, and it is, like I said, for us, it's just a very cool experience. So when you're in it, I guess we are those crazies that run toward it.
No, I'm not saying you're crazy. I'm just saying in the moment it must be.
No,
yeah.
We'll say that after we're done talking.
Yeah. No, because I get it. I totally get it. It wouldn't be me running towards it ever, but I can understand it.
Right. And, and I think when you look at these shows like Ghost Hunter and Ghost Adventures and, Destination Fear and all of these, it's interesting to me that you have these shows where people are saying, I'm going to go look for ghosts. And then before you go to the commercial break, the scene is they're running out of the building screaming. And I understand the sensationalism. I get it. I understand that it's there for entertainment value. I do. But for us, we've never had the desire to run out. We've never, like I said, we've been startled. It's like, holy crap, what was that? But it's never been one where we got to get out of here.
Have you ever come across, I guess what, I think you touched on this before, but like a poltergeist that would be like terrifying?
Currently, no. I think the closest we've come to would be at Brushy Mountain State Penitentiary. There was a room that when you went into it, it was the auditorium, you just felt really heavy. And there were, there's factual cases of prisoners killing prisoners in that location. And, the volunteers there will say that that they've seen things climb the wall and that it's very dark. And when you walk in, you do feel a heaviness. It's hard to explain, but the dark gets a little darker, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And so while to us, it's eerie and interesting. I got to say, it's one of the rooms that we really didn't delve into a whole lot. We set up equipment inside of it, and we did a couple EVPs sessions there, but we didn't really spend a lot of time in it because to us, it's like, we can find evidence in other parts of the prison. We're not really going to provoke this. So we've had some instances where things are dark, and then we've had some instances where things are funny. We were at the Exchange Hotel, and another investigator, Kim, and we sat down at opposite ends of this hallway, and we were trying to communicate with the spirit of a child named Jeremiah. And we each had our K2 meters in front of us, and I had this little glow in the dark ball. And I put it in front of my flashlight so it glowed really, really brightly. And I said, okay, if you want me to roll this ball down to Kim, light up my K2 meter. And the K2 meter went off. So I rolled it down, and we played this game for like 15 or 20 minutes. And that stuff is fun, So again, it's kind of back to the research, which leads us to the trigger items, which leads us to the experience. So I'd say poltergeist, not really. Interesting entities. Yes, we've had those, but again, nothing that I felt threatened by.
So you can tell by the energy in the room is like that. That's always been a thought of mine. Can you feel the change of energy?
In some locations, yes.
Yeah.
It really does depend on the location and kind of, I feel what happened there. So yeah, there was some instances at Brushy Mountain where we felt that. The old Gilchrist County Jail, again, this is a small jail. It was built in 1928 and it was on operation until 1968. And it's a small county jail. It only had 8 cells. It's 2 stories, had 8 cells, but it's in a very bad area of the county. In fact, Miranda and we both are licensed to conceal carry. So the owner said, if you're going in there, take your guns and keep them on you. So that's the area that we're in with this jail. And so when you go in, you do feel some heaviness in some of the areas where it's factually based that people were killed there. But like I said, as far as being threatened to the point where I want to run out by something that I can't see, I've never had that happen.
You guys are badasses. You're carrying like your weapons. God forbid, like a real ghost shows up, nothing's going to happen. It's just going to go right through them.
But it was cool because in that instance, we actually, and don't look at me poorly, but we actually used the guns as trigger items because when we went in for the first couple of hours, we were getting little bits of activity, but not a lot. And so Miranda said, they may think we're law enforcement. So we took our guns off and we put them on one of the cots there and stepped back out of the cell. And Miranda said, we're taking our guns off. We put our hands in the air and we said, we're not law enforcement. And as soon as we did that, a voice behind us said, good. And we caught it on audio. We caught it on our voice recorders. And after that, we obviously put the guns back on. But after that, the night went crazy with activity. And I have to say, that's probably, in my mind, what I would call the quote unquote perfect investigation, because every piece of equipment that we had that night was validating every other piece of equipment, as well as what we were hearing and seeing that night. So we were seeing shadow figures, and we had an SLS camera that was capturing those figures on the camera. And at the same time, we were asking questions that the REM pod went off and the Ovilus went off, and everything was validating everything else. So to us, that was probably the picture perfect investigation, if you can call one that.
That's awesome. That's really,
It's a lot of fun.
now I gotta, is that on one of your videos?
It is Old Gilchrist
I
County Jail.
am totally watching that as soon as we get off.
Well, good. I hope you do. You have to let me know what you think.
I will.
Good.
Now, in your opinion, why do you think most activity happens during the night?
Well, for us, we've actually had experiences during the day as well. We investigate at night for a variety of reasons. One, most of what I would call commercial locations, such as Brushy Mountain or Trans-Allegheny or whatever, their hours for investigations are at night. So we have to go during those hours. So there's that. And then two, your senses are just heightened because obviously during the day and in the light, you're relying on your eyes for kind of what you see and the experience that you're having. When you're in the dark and you don't have the greatest of eyesight, your other senses become heightened. Your smell, your touch, your hearing, all of that becomes heightened in that moment. And then also, the equipment, it just looks better in the night and in the dark. You have the meters lighten up, the REM pod lighten up, and it looks pretty badass in the night. But for us, like I said, I do joke about that, but we've actually had a lot of experiences during the day. Back to Miranda, she and I went to Fort Mifflin in Pennsylvania, and we just did a day tour because we were passing through to go to Lizzie Borden, and so we were just doing a day tour, but we kept our voice recorders with us, and we were down in one of the what they call the casemates. It was just the two of us that day, and we caught a male voice, and this was during the day. When I go to the Ma Barker house and I do these day tours with guests, it's routine that I'll get voices or knocks or bangs. So for us, we always have a voice recorder running if we're in a location, whether it be day or night. But our investigations are mostly at night because of the other things that I mentioned.
Okay.
What's your favorite piece of equipment?
For me personally, it would be the voice recorders, simply because, like I said before, for me, the audio is something that I think spirits can translate over pretty easily, more so than an apparition. I guess to me, the energy is easier to make a sound rather than to reveal yourself. So we always have voice recorders running, and then after that, I think the REM pod is a really good piece of equipment. We've used the spirit box successfully several times, and so that's kind of coming up on my list.
What is the spirit box? Is that the one where it just says random things?
No, that's the Ovilus. The spirit box. Yes, the spirit box is actually a little AM/FM radio, and just generally speaking, it's been modified to sweep through frequencies. So when you turn it on and you hit the sweep button, it'll very quickly go through either whatever it's set on AM or FM frequencies. So when you turn it on, and like if I were just to turn it on right now, you would hear a as it goes through these frequencies. So the idea being that the spirits will talk through the white noise. So when you hear something like a word or a phrase, that's an interesting catch because it's sweeping so fast through frequencies, you shouldn't expect the full phrase to be heard because it's going through these different stations, these different channels. So when we were at the Ma Barker house, and if you're not familiar with the Ma Barker house, it is the location in Central Florida where Ma and Freddie Barker were killed in 1935. And Ma and Freddie Barker were gang members and members of the Barker Carpus gang, who were the most prolific gang, bank robbers and gang in the late 1920s, early 1930s. So the FBI tracked Ma and Fred to this, little nondescript house in Ocklawaha, Florida, and surrounded them in January of 1935. And a gun battle between the FBI and Ma and Fred ensued. And Ma and Fred ended up being killed inside the house. So they were killed in an upstairs room, which I call the kill room. So when we were doing our investigation, we took the spirit box up to the kill room, and it was just myself and my twin sister in there that night. And so we turned the spirit box on, and we kind of stepped back from it, and immediately it said, "Someone's up here," which shouldn't happen because if you listen to that EVP, you can still hear the stations being swept behind it. So we got the phrase, "Someone's up here." And then I asked what happened in this room, and the phrase, "They murdered us," comes on. And so that was very telling. And then when Ma and Fred rented the house, they rented it under the name of T.C. Blackburn. And so during our investigation, I asked the spirit box, if anyone's here, can you say the name Blackburn? And the spirit box said Blackburn. And so to us, it was a very, very compelling piece of evidence at that location. So again, the spirit box is a very important piece of equipment to us. The K2 meters, and it really depends also on the location, which piece of equipment we really rely on. But every location gets voice recorders. Absolutely.
So this is going to be a silly question. I don't even know the name of it, but a friend of mine has this device. It kind of looks like you hook your iPad to it, and then it's got that, like, I think the piece for the Connect.
The
Do you know what
Xbox Connect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, that's called the SLS camera.
Oh, okay.
And and I have used one. We don't have one in our arsenal. Miranda Young, who I investigate frequently with and collaborate with, she does have one. So, like, for example, when she and I went to the old Gilchrist County Jail, we did use that SLS camera. So what it does is it essentially it has some algorithms that tries to map a human form.
Right.
So if I had that camera and I pointed it at you, you would look like a stick figure on this camera.
Right.
But when I point it to the wall, theoretically, because there's nothing there, I shouldn't see anything. So the idea is that if you pan this around a room and you see this stick figure, it could be an entity trying to manifest itself. And it was interesting to use at the old Gilchrist County Jail because she and I both had thought that we had seen this shadow figure run from one cell to the next. And so we pulled out the SLS camera where we thought we'd seen the shadow figure. There was the stick figure on the screen. And it was joined almost immediately after that by a second stick figure. Now, this was an area where after the jail had closed, this was an area in, I think, 1999, where some people had busted into the jail and it was a drug deal and one of the people were killed. So going back to the SLS camera, we caught the first stick figure, then another stick figure appears on the screen and it looks like he pulls a gun. The hand looks like it comes up and pulls a gun and shoots it at the first stick figure. And it was extremely compelling evidence to us because that is the exact location where that person was killed by this gunfight. So yes, we have experience using the SLS camera. It was pretty cool.
We had it here in our house, and I literally got rid of a piece of furniture because there was one attached to this little piece of furniture I had gotten.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was like a little antique table. I
Oh, cool.
totally sold that.
Good for you. Good for you. That'd probably be something to be like, oh, that's so cool.
Yeah,
but
you would love that.
I can understand you getting rid of it for sure. And that's definitely something that's very personal, and it can have an impact on a living space for sure. So getting rid of it probably was in your best interest.
I'm just weird like that.
When you and your sisters were younger, did you have any like activities that like kind of propelled you into this field?
We've had experiences. My sister and I are twins, so she and I have a very unique connection, and I would kind of chalk it up to that twindom, if you will, for some of the things that we experienced. And we've always had a connection. We are Christians, so we do have that belief in the afterlife and in heaven and all of that. So we've had experience to what I would probably say would be more angelic in nature rather than paranormal. So we did have some of that growing up. But I'd say the connection that Jenny and I have is more based on our twin connection. So some of the things that we had happen, there was one time where we were traveling in North Carolina, and we were going over the parkway there, and we hit an icy patch, and our car started to careen toward the cliffside, of course, of the road, and it just stopped, just like dead stop. It should have continued on. The inertia should have kept it going, but it just stopped. And we sat there for a few minutes, and my mom said, "Did y'all see the angels?" And we had. We'd all seen them. So to us, it was kind of belief that something had stopped the car. And, so we've had experiences like that. We did have a few different, little, what I would consider paranormal activity in certain areas of our house. For example, when my father would play the piano, if he played Amazing Grace, the entire room would light up or fill up with like this mist that had a very floral scent. And the woman that owned the house before us was said to have liked that song. So different things like that have occurred throughout our life. But really delving into these investigations we've obviously had a lot more paranormal activity happen.
What'd you say about the other girls? They also had similar experiences to get into it?
The other girls, Kim and Cara, we basically drugged them along. So,
Oh, okay.
yeah,
They're just there for the ride.
yeah, exactly. No, they were really fascinated. Cara and Michelle are great friends. So, when we went, Michelle asked Cara to come. And so she, she's kind of like our adopted sister. So she kind of came into the fold. And then Kim asked if she could go on an investigation with us. And we said, sure. And she was just a great addition to the team, just very, very upbeat and really into that research method that I spoke about. So just to have her as one of our team members has just been a great asset. So it's a really good fit. It's essentially like just family, which again is something that's different in this paranormal community. I was speaking to another guy who has a team, and he had broken off from another team because of discord among the members. So he formed his own team. And, for me, this isn't something that should be militant. It isn't something that should be, stressful. For us, this is fun. This is a way for us to get together and enjoy each other while doing something that is different. Not many people can say that they've stayed the night in a lighthouse or a Revolutionary War fort or a prison or an insane asylum, but we can. And it's something that, like I said, even absent paranormal activity, we just have a great time doing it. So when I hear about teams that have strife among its members, it just, that doesn't translate well with me. But just traveling with your sisters and with your two very good friends is just something that is an experience in and of itself.
Yeah, you have to have that trust. I mean, and that's everything. Yeah.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Now you mentioned you were heading to the Lizzie Borden house at one point. Did you do a whole investigation there?
We did. And in fact, I'm actually finishing up that evidence review now. And hopefully in the next week or so, I'll have that video released. And it was just a great night. We have several examples of some compelling evidence that we captured. And we just had a great night that night. It was all five of us, plus again, Miranda. Like I said, she and I have collaborated on some different investigations. So I invited her to come with us on that one, just because I really enjoy her investigation skills. She has the similar mindset when it comes to the historical research. Right. So to partner with her and collaborate with her on different things has been a tremendous advantage to us. But to answer your question, we went to Lizzie Borden in November and just had an amazing experience there.
So a lot of activity for you.
Mm-hmm. So far, like I said, I'm finishing up evidence review. And that's another thing that is different with regard to television shows. What the audience sees is 30 minutes of an investigation followed up by 15 minutes of evidence review and then 15 minutes of evidence reveal, and boom, you're done. Realistically, we are in a location for 8, 10, 12, 15 hours. And we have equipment running the entire time. So when I have, 10 voice recorders running for 10 hours, I listen to all of that audio. My team, we sit down, we listen to that. We watch all of the videos. We all carry body cameras. So all of that gets reviewed. So for us, it usually takes about 2 to 2.5 months to go through everything. And then for me to edit the video and put it together and put it out there. So it is a little bit of a process, but to us, it's definitely worth it.
You already answered the question, but I was curious as, if you listen to everything, but I guess you do. That's very tedious, but I guess it's necessary.
It is. I'll admit there's some times where, if I have a voice recorder and a camera in one location, I may defer to the audio on the camera or something like that. But for the most part, every piece of equipment that we deploy, we absolutely watch and listen to.
And you would have to think that you guys going in is more of a softer hit than an entire camera crew going in, being in every single room, being in every single nook and cranny of the house. They got wires everywhere. And really all you're seeing are the actors.
You're absolutely right. And, we don't have that camera crew for the most part. On a full investigation, obviously there's 5 of us, and we try to get at least 3 of those a year. But we do these one-offs where, it'll just be Jenny and I, or Jenny and Michelle and I, or Kim and I, or, like I said, I'll collaborate with Miranda and she and I will go to a location. So there are instances where it's just, 2 or 3 of us. And, we try to travel light as we can. And we don't want to spend a lot of time running wires. So we've gotten very creative with some of the equipment that we've purchased. Everything is battery operated, which costs a fortune, but everything is battery operated and very easily deployed, easily picked up. And then most of it is easily, it translates well into our files, and we can watch it without any incident really. But so yeah, to your point, it's one of those things where we've gotten very creative in how we deploy our equipment for sure.
You mentioned, I could be wrong, but I kept wanting to circle back to this. You mentioned, and I don't want to mispronounce it, is it like a Paracon? Is that something that happens?
Yes. Paranormal conventions, Paracons.
Now, can anybody go?
Yeah, absolutely. So most of them, sell tickets and they'll have speakers. In fact, we will be at the Las Cruces Paracon in October out in New Mexico. So that's one that we've already been booked. We were actually booked for 2 more in March and April, but of course, with everything going on, those were canceled. So yes, Paracons, a lot of times they'll sell tickets. They'll have a speaker list or a vendor list, and you can go and listen to the speakers that you want to listen to, or purchase merchandise from the vendors. So yeah, it's something that goes on at various times throughout the year, at various locations throughout the year.
That is so interesting. I would love to go to one. I've never heard of it.
You just kind of Google them. There's, like I said, all over the country at different parts of the year. You mentioned Gettysburg. Gettysburg has a very big paranormal convention. It's called the Battlefield Bash. I think it's in July. I'm not sure if that one will still be going on this year or not, depending, with everything going on. But yeah, there's paranormal conventions all over the country.
That's awesome.
It's a lot of fun.
We're totally going to one, you guys.
You should go out to New Mexico in October and listen to Soul Sisters Paranormal speak at the Las Cruces convention.
There you go.
We can make that happen.
All right, I like it.
If the country's opened in October, who the heck knows?
It better
right?
We're expecting that second wave or something. I don't know.
Oh gosh, yeah, but we're still looking forward to going out there. So maybe we'll see you.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. I'm writing that down.
Good. It's also on our Facebook page if you need it.
Oh, okay. Then I don't have to write it down.
So what do you do, unless it's this, what do you do like normal life, like normal job type deal? Or is this what you only do?
No. We all are professionals in our fields. I kind of have a mixed background. I was a college professor, as well as my background is actually in aviation security with biometric emphasis. So I would actually go to these different airports and install biometric fingerprint readers and iris imagers for aviation access control. And on the side, I was a college professor. Now,
on the side.
She's extraordinarily brilliant. Kids, all right.
Jeez.
Yes, and so now I do a lot of property management, and my family actually started a wedding and an event venue in Central Florida. So I do that. All of my other siblings and cohorts in this. We've got a couple lawyers. We've got a college administrator and history, high school English teacher.
Damn, they are all kick-ass ladies.
And we try to be.
Yeah.
We try to be.
Well, I mean, it's not like your average Joe just walking a housewife going out there.
No,
you got some chutzpah.
Well, like I said, it was just one of those things that I always thought we'd kind of do a paranormal investigation here or there at some point in our lives, but really after that West Virginia State Penitentiary investigation, we really were hooked, and we just decided, let's formalize this. Let's get our logo. Let's get our name. Let's get the website, and just really kind of move with it and see where it goes. We've had so many cool experiences, even outside the investigations, just meeting new people, seeing cool things, crisscrossing the country, going to these locations, and just really getting that, like I said before, that historical aspect of these locations as well. Staying in a Civil War hospital, or the Villisca Axe murder house, or prisons and penitentiaries and forts. That's just an experience that you just can't buy. You can't translate that into anything else. So for us, these experiences and these getting together, girls' weekends is just amazing. And we don't even have to find the paranormal to have a great adventure.
That sounds like a dream. It really does.
It's a lot of fun.
Now, I think it's time to ask you, which has been your favorite place to visit? And to put a question on top of that, what was your favorite, like, specter, spirit, or just experience throughout everything?
Well, I'll preface it by saying that all of the locations that we've been to have been fascinating for their own historical significance. The location that's been, I'd say, near and dear to us has been the Ma Barker House in Central Florida. It's important to us for a couple of reasons. We grew up right down the road from this house. So, when we would stay with our Nana and Granddaddy and we'd, drive down to get the mail, they'd always point to the house and say, that's where the Ma Barker shootout happened. And so it was very cool. It's always been in our, immediate family history, just kind of knowing about that. And in 2016, Marion County, which is the county there, actually took it over. So I went to the county and I said, I'm a native of the county. Will you allow us to go in and investigate this house? And to date, we've only been the only paranormal investigation team that's been allowed in there. And as I said before, after that investigation, I just became so fascinated with the history and the house itself that I volunteer there. So I'm there, on a weekly basis, just going in and out, and I'll go in and they'll say, hey, Ma, hey, Freddie. And so that connection is very cool. So I'll say that is my quote unquote favorite part, or favorite location. But as far as paranormal activity, I'll go back to the Gilchrist County Jail in Trenton, Florida, and just say that little location, while it's little in scope, was just packed full of paranormal activity, probably some of the best activity that I've ever captured or even heard of. And as far as the favorite specter or piece of evidence that we captured, that would have been at Fort Mifflin, and that's in Philadelphia. And this fort is tremendous. It was a Revolutionary War fort. It held prisoners during the Civil War. It's just such a rich historical background to this location. And they have what they call a casemate. It's a subterranean room, and it was just recently discovered within the last 10 years. They didn't even know it was there. Somebody was mowing the grass and kind of fell into it. And so yeah, exactly. Right. So it's this subterranean room, and it's accessed by one door, this wooden door, and you go down. It's I'd say about 7 or 8 feet under the ground, and you go down these stairs and you take a right, and there's just this open cell, for lack of a better term. And come to find out that there was a prisoner in there during the Revolutionary War. He was tried for treason and hung at the fort, but they held him in solitary confinement in that casemate for months. And so we had set up inside the doorway. We had set up a night vision video camera and a laser grid. And we were the only people in the fort anywhere around. And all of us were in another casemate when this happened. But and it's on the video, but you see a shadow figure walk through the laser grid. And based on where this was, the shadow figure looks to be probably about 6 feet tall. And the way I had the laser grid and the camera positioned, the laser grid was probably about 6 or 8 inches in front of the camera. So anything that passed that beam, you should have seen it on camera, and you don't. You just see the beams being crossed of the laser grid. I know that the folks there at Fort Mifflin actually show that piece of evidence when anybody asked if the fort is haunted. They'll show that evidence, and I believe they showed it to ghost hunters as well, and they were pretty much blown away by it as well. So that to me is our favorite piece of evidence, our go-to,
awesome.
if you will.
That's awesome.
Again, I'd be pooping my pants. That's just me.
You can keep the camera, keep it all.
No, that is incredible. That is really incredible.
It is, and that's also the casemate where I had said that we had left the bread and the water and the cigarettes, and so Cara and I were down there that night, and it was just the two of us. And I said, "Did you? We left you some water, we left you some cigarettes," and audibly we heard "thank you." And again, we were the only people there.
Shit.
And that's kind of one of the interesting things about, again, being an all-female team, is when we capture male voices or children's voices, I can very quickly rule out that it's one of us, because obviously we're not male. So to capture a male voice or to capture a child's voice, again, it just adds to that compelling evidence that we've been able to capture.
No, I haven't watched all too many episodes or anything. Would you say they all have distinctive voices, or, I know you can differentiate a child, a woman, and a man, but as far as their voices, are they distinctive?
Oh yeah. If you, I don't know if you watched the episode from the Exchange Hotel, but if you get a chance, watch that episode because there was it used to be. It started out as a hotel. This is in Gordonsville, Virginia. It started out as a hotel, and then during the Civil War, it became a Civil War hospital, and they cared for both Union and Confederate soldiers. So they have over 700 verified deaths in that hotel. And then after it was used as a hospital, it went back to being a hotel. So when we went, it's 3 stories. So when we went, we set up our stationary equipment everywhere. And one of the places where we set a voice recorder was on this bed in one of the rooms. And so during the night, Jenny and Michelle and Cara were across the hall, and it's probably the best EVP that we've ever captured. It's a man's voice, and he sounds elderly, and he goes, "I don't know. I'll be back at 4:30." And to us, it was very cool because, was it a surgeon? Was it somebody waiting for one of the trains that came through Gordonsville? It was a very cool piece of evidence. And then about 2 or 3 hours after that, there's a child, and you hear him come up to the voice recorder and say, "Hi, this is my bed," which again is very compelling because the voice recorder is on the bed. So to us, it was like he was interacting, telling the voice recorder, "Hey, this is my bed." So in that instance, you get 2 very, very distinct voices. And that's just in that one location. So when we go to, Brushy Mountain, some of the evidence that we captured there are very deep-throated, almost that Appalachian accent, if you will, on those EVPs. We went to Prospect Place in Ohio, and that was a known location on the Underground Railroad. And so we were trying to get some entities to speak with us, and it was known that a couple of the slaves that tried to get through the Underground Railroad perished there. And one of the voices that we caught sounded like an African American woman saying, "They here to talk to us." And it was, again, just very compelling evidence that we captured that night. So to answer your question in a very long-winded way, there are instances where you can absolutely differentiate between voices.
Incredible. I'm going to have to delve. Well, when it's daylight, I'm going to start delving. I don't think I'll watch any more this evening. We have a rule in this house.
Yeah. Yeah, and like I said, we have a lot of fun just putting them together for the historical aspect, and it's just finding those little historic gems or pieces of information that people probably don't know about that we can put in there that really, I think, really kind of makes our videos. Because even if you don't believe in the paranormal, we're hoping that you can learn some history behind it just from watching our videos.
See, that's my favorite part because, I like going somewhere. And the history part, when I can just stand there and say, like, "Oh, so and so's been here," or "It's been around since such and such time," and to me, that just like that feeling of being a part of it is awesome.
Yeah, you do love that.
I do.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. When you go to the Farnsworth there in Gettysburg, and you can actually put your finger on the bullet holes from the snipers that were trying.
That's the place. I was wondering.
Yeah.
Oh yes.
No, we've been to Gettysburg a 3, 4, 5, I don't know, years ago.
A few years ago.
Somewhere in now and a long time ago we were there.
Yeah, so it's like that. And if you go to the Ma Barker house, the people that actually own the house that Ma and Fred rented, they had the foresight and just the kind of the wherewithal to save the house as it was during the shootout. So they covered up the bullet holes with pictures, but you took the pictures down and there's still bullet holes all on the walls.
Oh, that's incredible.
Yeah, there's rocking chairs that have bullet holes through them. And so to walk into that house and, kind of put your finger on that and say, okay, this bullet hole was created in 1935, that's to me pretty freaking awesome.
It's a hell of a shootout.
And could have went through a human.
Well, yeah, it was the longest shootout in FBI history. It still maintains that designation, and over 2,000 rounds were fired between the FBI and Ma and Fred that day.
Oh my God.
That's actually incredible that Ma and Fred had that much ammunition hanging out before they died. I wonder how much they recovered after that.
They absolutely had a trove of ammunition for sure. They had been prepared for the FBI to find them at some point, but they didn't expect it to be that quickly. I think by that point they were getting a little full of themselves. Again, these were two members of one of the most ruthless gangs in the late 1920s, early 1930s. So they had a large cache of guns and ammunition and cash and all of that.
But at least they were prepared. I feel like, Bonnie and Clyde, they just got like sideswiped. It wasn't even a good time.
Yeah, that was ill planned for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, they got way too cocky during the time, but
Exactly. Absolutely.
no, I'm sorry. So I saw you've gone to a couple hotels, and now you said that one of them was a Civil War hospital. And I've seen other shows go to a lot of hotels. I'm guessing that a lot of them are previously something else prior to being a hotel is why you and other shows and other people and groups end up at them?
For the most part, yes. For us, we go to what I would term commercial locations, really to kind of build our portfolio and to kind of really hone our research techniques and our equipment techniques. So we'll find these places like the Exchange Hotel or Fort Mifflin. So even though they're known in the paranormal community, we still want to go and see if we can validate the paranormal activity that's been described to happen at these locations. And for the most part, we've done some of that. I think we've found some evidence that other people haven't, which is kind of cool. But yeah, Civil War hospitals, Civil War hotels, anything in that era, I think just has such emotion behind it,
Right.
that spirit energy is going to remain for one reason or another. Prisons, I think, are another example of, the entire reason for being is to make it uncomfortable for somebody. So for a prisoner to be uncomfortable and to have all that energy on a day in and day out basis and to be killed in that facility, that I think that energy is going to remain. But that we've gone to some hotels that aren't related to the Civil War. We went to the Manger Hotel in San Antonio. It's directly across the street from the Alamo. And it was actually, we were there for a family reunion. So we weren't even really there to investigate. But, Michelle and Jenny and I kind of peeled off and did a mini investigation of the hotel. We captured what we believe is a very compelling piece of evidence of a woman in a mirror. We actually took it to the hotel manager, and he said that's the best picture he's ever seen captured at the hotel. So, for us, there's...
And he still works there? What the hell's wrong with him?
Is this a known thing that happens, or?
It is. Yeah. The Manger Hotel is supposed to be very haunted. And like I said, we just had a couple of cameras and voice recorders that night because we weren't looking to do a paranormal investigation. But, at 2:00, we just kind of, walked out of our room and started going through some of the foyers and stuff. And we caught a picture. It's on our website of what we feel is a woman in a blue dress. And it just happened to be hanging outside of a room where a woman committed suicide, I believe in the 1930s.
Oh, wow.
So yes, it's a known hotspot for paranormal activity. But to kind of go back to your question, I think that just it really depends on the location. But Civil War hospitals and such like that, Civil War hotels or hotels that were converted into hospitals for that reason, I think they have a high paranormal activity threshold, if you will.
When you say you say on your website, we do not claim that it is verifiable paranormal activity, but I mean, you obviously, you lived it, mm-hmm. You're there. Mm-hmm. You just say that for, the sake of everybody else.
Well, right. I am not going to try to convince somebody that there's hauntings. I'm not going to try to convince them. If you watch my videos and you say, well, that's just, they're making that up, that's fine. That's your belief. I won't sit and try to convince you otherwise. Right. For me, it's trying to convince somebody that my religion is right. I'm not going to do it. There's no way to do that. So what we're trying to do with these videos is say, okay, we went to this location with this equipment and this number of people, and this is what we found that we can't explain. And for us, I'll always call it unexplainable. I'm not going to say verifiable paranormal evidence. To us, it's unexplainable, compelling paranormal evidence, if you will. It's something that I can't explain. Now, if somebody wants to come back at me and say, well, at Fort Mifflin, it's probably this, and this, that's great. We will take that into consideration. But, during that time of night when we were there, I couldn't explain it. I can't explain it. When I've got shadow figures walking through a laser grid, when I can absolutely guarantee and prove to you that nobody walked in front of that camera or that laser grid, I'm going to call it unexplainable. If somebody else wants to label it paranormal, that's great. But that's kind of why I put that on the website.
Right. There's just no way. Yeah.
There isn't, and like I said at the beginning, a lot of people say I'm a paranormal expert. And to me, I'd be leery of those people because this isn't a science that we can explain. It's not like gravity where we've got it, we understand it. We're not going to find out the answers to this until we die.
Right.
And so we all have, what we consider great, compelling evidence, but that's all it is. It's evidence. And it's not going to actually prove one way or the other that something is going on. And so that is why I'll never call myself a paranormal expert. I may say I have several years under my belt with regard to investigating this, but I'll never call myself an expert.
Gotcha. At least you're super open. I like that.
Well, yeah, I try to be.
You've been an amazing guest.
Oh, well, I really appreciate y'all having me. I very much enjoyed this conversation.
Thank you. We've enjoyed. Well, we hope you come back one day.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you have any follow-up questions or whatever, or if you want some more information on paracons, just ask, and I'll be free to give you some information.
I totally will be asking about that. I think that's something that I just got turned on to.
Fantastic. Well, I definitely hope to see you at some of ours.
Yeah. Awesome.
We'll definitely be in touch. And with that said, I know we mentioned a few times. Why don't you let everybody know again where they can find you?
Oh, thank you. So our website is www.soulsistersparanormal.com. And we also are very active on Facebook at Soul Sisters Paranormal. I've just really kind of started into the Instagram scene. So we are there under Soul Sisters Paranormal. And yeah, so if anybody wants to connect with us on Facebook or recommend locations that they'd like us to visit, or just kind of get in contact with general questions, we'd love to hear from you.
Awesome. I think we're going to have maybe you guys should come up to Jersey.
Absolutely.
Or the surrounding areas.
Yeah, or the surrounding areas.
There's plenty of stuff up here.
There is. And that's one location that we definitely want to get up to. So yeah, and when we come up, look you all up and probably get you on an investigation with us.
Hell yeah.
All right.
In the daytime, right?
Well, we can do both. We can divide it up. Then if you want to peel off at around sunset, then we'll take over from there.
You can just film us and use us for the intros of us running the hell away.
There you go. The feet running are not Soul Sisters. Yes, we'll definitely have to do that. I love that idea.
Oh, that would be great.
All right. And as always, you guys could find us as the Beer Latte Show on Instagram and Facebook, and Beer Latte at Twitter. And we'll see you guys next week.
Bye.
Thank you, Christy.
Yeah. This drip all on my body, soaking wet the sunny. Looking like a walking lick, yeah, you